Central Texas is water challenged, and West Texas is water scarce. Rule capture is the law of the land for groundwater, and that's basically, if you're a landowner, you own the water beneath your land, and you have a right to pump as much water as you can get. There are restrictions. You're not allowed just to pump it out and waste it.
Even in water-rich East Texas, there's a battle right now over potential plans to pump a lot of water and transport it to other parts of the state. Many locals fear it will deplete their wells.
I usually say when it comes to water, there's two things to remember. One is that water is heavy, and so that means it's expensive to move. If you're having to pump it uphill, it takes a lot of electricity. And water is also personal. You can't live without water. People, when they, particularly in rural areas, the water that's under their land is critical for them.
He said a future water source is brackish groundwater, which is saltier than fresh water and is less costly to treat than seawater. However, seawater will be more important along the Texas Gulf Coast. I'm Robert Thornton.
Ford Motor Company is recalling nearly 64,000 vehicles in 2 separate safety recalls. Kristen Goodwin has more.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Ford Motor Company is recalling nearly 42,000 2020 to 2022 Lincoln Corsair vehicles, citing a defect in the rearview camera system. Officials say water could enter the camera connectors, potentially causing the image to be blank or distorted. Safety officials go on to say Ford is also recalling nearly 22,000 2025 Lincoln Nautilus, Mustang Mach-E, and Mustang vehicles because of a defect in the LED driver modules that may cause exterior lighting failures. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net.
Welcome to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Shreve, Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church in Texarkana, Texas. Now, here's Pastor Jeff.
Well, good morning and welcome to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Shreve here. Hope you're having a great Tuesday morning. I wanted to read to you from 2 Kings chapter 18. 2 Kings chapter 18 tells us about the kingship of Hezekiah, good King Hezekiah. It says in verse 3 that he did right in the sight of the Lord according to all that his father David had done. He removed the high places and broke down the sacred pillars and cut down the Asherah. He also broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For until those days the sons of Israel burned incense to it, and it was called Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, so that after him there was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor among all those who were before him. For he clung to the Lord, he did not depart from following him, but he kept his commandments, which the Lord had commanded Moses. Well, not to make too big a leap and say Donald Trump is the second coming of Hezekiah, but we know that Donald Trump has smashed a lot of the idols that the Democrats have put a lot of faith and trust in. He's gone after the deep state. He's dismantled a lot of those things, USAID, which was rotten to the core. He's dismantled that. He has attacked Democratic strongholds on so many fronts that it's hard for them to have a strategy of response, and frankly, in my opinion, he's made them look foolish as he's put them in all these 80-20 positions where they're defending the indefensible. Well, to help me with this discussion today, as we kind of look at Trump's presidency, we talk about his diplomacy, we talk about the latest thing that he has vowed to go after, which is mail-in voting, which is fraught with fraud and corruption. But to help me with this discussion is my good friend, Dr. Scott Colter, president and founder of the Danbury Institute. Scott, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, good morning, Pastor. Great to be with you. So glad to be here always.
Well, I appreciate you, Scott, so much, and your willingness to be involved in the battle, the fight for the unborn, and the fight for Judeo-Christian principles as it relates to the public square. You know, we were told by Hillary Clinton and others that we need to just practice your religion inside the four walls of your church, but don't bring that out into the public square. Well, your work, Charlie Kirk, others have said, hey, we're here too, and we want to fight for the welfare of the country, which is a good thing. If we stay out of the political realm, then who's left in it? Not the Lord's people, and so the Lord's people need to be out and about. Scott, so big news, everybody's talking about Trump meeting with Putin and meeting with the European leaders and meeting with Zelensky. What's your take on all that has happened in the last few days?
Well, we can get into the details of all of this, Pastor, but we can't miss, first of all, just the pleasure of the moment. Did you see the clip where President Putin had arrived and was walking off the plane, and Trump greeted him on the red carpet in Alaska? They're walking up and saying hello, and then here comes overhead the deafening roar of a B-2 stealth bomber flanked by two, I think they were F-22 Raptors. You can't hear a word when those things fly over, and buzzed over President of Russia here. Man, that's just classic vintage Donald Trump. You bring the chief opponent, your kind of rival president from the other side of the world, bring him to the red carpet, shake his hand, give him a hug, and then fly your military over his head, just to remind him where he is. And
yes.
Of course, those are the same planes that took out the bunker buster bombs in Iran just a few months ago, and that were on full display for the whole world to see. So I really enjoyed that, and have watched that clip quite a few times. So welcome to the United States, President Putin.
Yes. Well, Trump, the left likes to paint Trump like he's an idiot, like he doesn't know what he's doing. I saw a clip, I don't know how long ago it was, but Barbara Corcoran, however you say her name, that was on Shark Tank. And she said, she loves Donald Trump. She said there's nobody that can negotiate and sell like Donald Trump. And he does it in such a masterful way. The Art of the Deal is his book. I think that's the only book he wrote, but he is really good at that. And so the negotiations that he's doing, trying to bring peace, seem to be very effective.
Well, he is a New York real estate broker, and you don't get to that position of prominence and wealth and success without knowing what you're doing. And the left loves to paint him as just kind of a bumbling idiot, stumbling through all of this, making mistake after mistake. But when you step back and you look at what's happening, it is remarkable what he's accomplishing. The peace treaties that he has secured and the ceasefires that he has secured are overwhelming. And everyone's looking at this going, why couldn't this have happened in the last 3.5 years? Where was this? Where was this level of leadership? Where was this level of diplomacy? Someone that was criticized as being unable to do any of these things has brought leaders to our country, has traveled abroad to see them, and has brought about more peace, more ceasefire, more prosperity around the world, but safety and security of citizens, of civilians, not just Americans, but of other countries, of Christians around the world. This is unprecedented. We pulled up the list this morning. It's countries everywhere that have been in long-standing conflicts that he's been able to bring to the table and to negotiate through this in ways that no one said he could. He deserves a lot of the credit for that, and the left's just unwilling to do it. So it's really interesting to see how that works out.
Well, Scott, I want to play you a clip from Bill Maher. Bill Maher, who is a big liberal, but he's honest about things. This is what he had to say concerning exactly what you're talking about.
It's funny, I see that today is the anniversary of Woodstock. This is 56 years ago. And the hippies, what did they hate more than anything else? War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So if you're the kind of person who says, you can find some good in anybody, this would be the good in Donald Trump. He really does not like war. Thailand and Cambodia were firing at each other. Rwanda and the Congo. Most people don't even know about these. India and Pakistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He got involved in all of them. He really, he doesn't really, he wants to. Now, the way he does it, as usual, not, with Ukraine, the solution was, surrender. Give Putin everything he wants. And even that didn't work. That's the thing. He gave Putin anything he wanted, and it didn't work. But again, let's not have the zombie lie that he's still backing Putin, because, first of all, he bombed Iran. That was a Putin ally. He didn't get out of NATO.
No.
He mended fences with NATO. So, and he put sanctions back on Russia. So, you know.
You're really coming around, Bill.
I'm not coming around. There's no coming around. There's just to what's true.
All right, Scott, your thoughts on him. He didn't like the fact that he said you're coming around, but he's honest enough to say, hey, the guy is doing a good job when it comes to diplomacy and stopping war.
Well, Democrats are in an impossible position right now because this is just the truth. And these are policies that are benefiting everybody. They're benefiting the left and the right in this country. They're benefiting citizens around the world. And when you look at that, Azerbaijan, Armenia, really the incubus of a lot of Christianity in the world, Christians were facing more persecution in Armenia right now than perhaps in anywhere else on this planet. And America was totally asleep to that. That was not on our agenda. That wasn't something we were paying attention to. The average American citizen had no clue where Azerbaijan was. And for Trump to make that one of his agenda items, to step into that and to be able to secure peace there. They had those leaders, they brought them to the White House, they were sitting next to him, they shook hands in the arrangement there, and they said for more than 30 years, we have been fighting, and because of President Trump, we are now friends. That is a monumental accomplishment. And so the left is reeling right now. Bill Maher encapsulates that perfectly. They don't know what to do because this is true. This is things that Trump said he would accomplish, that he is accomplishing, and that Democratic president after Democratic president, Obama, Biden, whoever you're talking about, was absolutely unable to accomplish these. They left these conflicts rolling. They hoped no one noticed, and people were dying, hundreds and thousands of people by the day. So this is for the good of everyone. The Beatitudes certainly command us, you're very, very familiar, to be peacemakers. Mm-hmm. And that's not a peacekeeper. There's often not peace to keep. Sometimes you have to make peace and establish peace. Those are the children of God. Trump is doing the Lord's work here. We can talk about his faith and his beliefs and all of that all day long, but he is doing the Lord's work. He is making peace. And that's biblically commanded. And that's a humanitarian president that we haven't seen in a long time in America.
Well, Scott, I want to play you a clip. I ran across this just the other day. It was Hakeem Jeffries, who's, if Trump's for breathing, he's against it. But he was on CNBC, and they're going through a list of things that Trump has accomplished, and they're trying to say, well, you Democrats are telling us threat to democracy, sky is falling, tariffs are going to destroy the economy, all these things, and it's very difficult for him to respond. Listen to this.
Here in the United States of America.
And are you surprised that the tariffs haven't had a bigger impact on prices, for example?
I think it remains to be seen where this is headed. I'm deeply concerned that the tariffs are going to exacerbate the inflationary challenges that we already have in the United States of America, the affordability issues that we have in the United States of America, particularly as it relates to consumer goods and consumer goods that are going to be important to the American people as folks prepare to send their children back to school.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know about deflation and costs coming down. All I can tell you is that the inflation rate itself was 2.7% in the most recent read year over year versus it got to a high of 9% under Biden. Stocks are at record highs. Unemployment is 4.2%. That's full employment. The GDP was 3%. The border is actually secure. We've got trade deals with EU, Japan, many more in the works, and trillions of dollars of foreign investment coming here. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been set back indefinitely. And I just wrote down a few things. So I just have to ask you, where is the calamity that you're talking about? And it almost seems like for Democrats, socialism is the answer to these problems, or I don't know, an end of democracy or something. We just don't get it.
Well, actually,
we just don't get it. Scott, if you were a strategist for the Democrats, what would you say? What would be your strategy?
Well, they need some new talking points. These talking points are old, they're tired, and they're not working out for them. They have been saying from the beginning, this is the end. This is the end of democracy. This is the end of civilization as we know it. And time again, they've been proving that that's not only false, but the opposite is true. I remember a few months ago, it was egg prices. No one can afford to buy eggs. Well, eggs cost less now than they did under Joe Biden. It was gas prices will skyrocket out of control. Well, gas costs less today than it did under Joe Biden. Well, it was the tariffs that's going to tank the economy. Well, it hasn't tanked the economy. It has actually balanced our trade. It has moved us towards fair trade. And as Trump said and signaled to his base, trust me, let me work. These are negotiating measures. These are negotiating tools. Almost every single table we put retaliatory tariffs against have come to the table, have negotiated with us, and now are buying American-made products. That's unprecedented. That had not happened in 50 years. We have been offshoring all kinds of manufacturing, car manufacturing, energy manufacturing, all of those things. That's coming back home. I'm in Tennessee this week traveling for work. They're building a Ford plant just up the road here to build Ford electric vehicles back on United States soil. They're bringing tens of thousands of people into this region in middle America to work at this plant, providing jobs. All of this is trending remarkably quickly in the right direction. And the Democrats who said this is the end, they're wrong on every single count, and they look really foolish right now.
Well, they really do. And, you know, if you're Chicken Little and you keep saying the sky is falling, after a while, people just tune you out because you're bringing nothing to the table. And it's just, well, you know, he's a Nazi, he's a fascist. You know, that seems to be, they're not even saying that anymore because that's just fallen on deaf ears. But you can't, as the old saying goes, Scott, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And it's pretty hard to say that he is not being extremely successful in leading our country to be a great country once again. We have about a minute till the break. Just your comments on that?
Well, we can talk about this more in the next segment, but he's restoring safety to Washington, D.C. This is a leftist city. They are benefiting from the safety measures he's putting in place. He's restoring integrity to our elections. Dictators and fascists don't do that. And so the proof is in the pudding. You're absolutely right. And just watch and see what happens. But we are back on the right direction. America seems to be back. With those B-2 bombers flying over again, it feels great in this country once again.
It really does. Well, we're talking to Dr. Scott Colter, the president and founder of the Danbury Institute. And I encourage you to go online and check out the Danbury Institute. The organization exists to unite Christians, pastors, churches, to fight for what's right for our Judeo-Christian heritage and the foundations that made our country great. We're listening to Pastor Jeff Shreve, Real Truth for Today on American Family Radio. We'll be right back with more Scott Colter.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I'm Claire from Trinity Debt Management. I'm a counselor, and the reason that I love working for Trinity is because I get to help folks with one of the hardest problems a family can face, and that's financial difficulties. In this day and age, everything is going up. You have higher utilities, higher grocery bills, higher fuel, and those credit card interest rates have gone up as well. We can help you with that. We can help you get lower interest rates, lower monthly payments. In just a few minutes, we put together a plan that gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. I love my job. It's a great program and a very smart way to find debt relief.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
I'm Claire, a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Life can be hard, but we have to keep our eyes focused on Jesus. I'm Christy Graham, host of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, and I want to encourage you in your walk with God. Listen each week as we go behind the scenes of our work around the world. You'll be challenged and encouraged in your own faith as you hear how God is actively changing lives. Join us for On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Central, right here on American Family Radio.
God is at work and He's calling His people to rise in truth. Truth Rising is a powerful new documentary from Focus on the Family and the Colson Center. See how ordinary Christians choose courage in a culture that needs truth. Watch Truth Rising starting September 5th and find out how you can be a part of the change and become an agent of restoration. Sign up at truthrising.com. That's truthrising.com.
The Word of God tells us many times in one form or another, fear not. Many people are very fearful about some of the many perils and dangerous happenings that are going on in the world. Psalm 91 verses 1 and 2 tell us, He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust. I'm Joseph Parker, and we here at the American Family Association would like to remind you, fear not, put your trust in the Lord. We'd like to both encourage and challenge you to aggressively put your faith to work. And one way to do that is to pray Psalm 91 daily for yourself and your family, and keep your trust in Him. If you'd like to get a copy of the Psalm 91 prayer for yourself, email us here at psalm91@afa.net. Again, that's psalm91@afa.net.
This is Real Truth for Today. Podcasts of the program are available on the podcast page at afr.net. Now, back to Pastor Jeff Shreve.
Welcome back to the program. Pastor Jeff Shreve here, talking to my good friend Dr. Scott Colter, the president and founder of the Danbury Institute. Now, Scott, the Danbury Institute is a year and a half old, 2 years old?
Yeah, just had our second year. So we're working on year 2 here and have had a great year of success and are leaning into kind of all new things this year. So excited about that.
And so where can our listeners check you out?
DanburyInstitute.org. You can find us there. Sign up for our weekly emails that come out, the Life and Liberty Brief. We're also on social media. Find us on X, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube as well, and would love to connect with you there. But we're a coalition protecting the sanctity of human life and religious liberty in the public square.
All right, Scott, as we were talking about, Trump putting the Democrats in this 80-20 situation where they're all, because they're against him for everything. He is a master at having you defend the indefensible. So, speaking of crime, they're coming after him. Hillary Clinton, others coming after him for putting in, hey, we're taking over the law enforcement in Washington, D.C., and we're going to make these streets safe again. How do you possibly sell the fact that, well, the statistics are down, this is a power grab, but we don't need this, when everybody knows, and you've spent time in D.C., everybody knows it's not safe?
Absolutely. Well, we are conservatives, Jeff, you and I both, because we believe in the principles of the Conservative Party, that they are good and they are true and they are moral and that they are good for all of society. And so, of course, when we have a president that actually enacts these policies, this is what's been so frustrating about the recent history of the Republican Party is we haven't enacted the policies that we supposedly believe in. We have a president now who is following through on what he has said he would do, and he's putting these policies into practice, and he's putting them into the world around us. This has happened in D.C. They've federalized the National Guard. They've moved it in to not do law enforcement, but to assist the local police. They've taken temporary leadership over the local police department, the Metropolitan D.C. Police Department there, and they are empowering them to do their jobs. This is the problem. You've had leftist leadership in cities that have tied up and have made it impossible for the police who want to help people, want to protect and serve, to go out and to do their jobs and to stop the crime in their city. If you are arrested, you're let right back out of jail, you're back on the streets, and so there's no deterrence. There's no fear. And so youth and young men have been running rampant in Washington, D.C., terrorizing citizens, terrorizing politicians, terrorizing tourists and visitors, to the point of not able to go walk down the street safely, not able to go eat on a patio outside of a restaurant, not able to live your life in your neighborhood and to get to and from your vehicle to your car safely without fear of being carjacked or robbed or stabbed or murdered in the city there. This is America. We should not have cities overrun by evil and by crime like that, especially in our nation's capital. What an embarrassment to all of America to bring in world leaders to a city that's overrun by crime, homelessness, dirt, grime. That's our shining example of the American experiment, and it's been pretty dim for some time now. So Trump is fixing that, and it's really hard to argue with it. It's really hard to argue, even if you're the most rabid leftist, that you also want to get out of your car and walk safely to your townhome or your house. And so those who are trying to paint this as again, the end of the world, they're really failing to do so. A lot of Democrats have come out and said, yeah, this is working out well. We're grateful for some of this. And so it turns all that on their head. And it's grateful to see how they navigate some of those conversations.
Well, Scott, I saw Joe Scarborough say that he was getting texts by fellow liberals that said they wouldn't say anything publicly because it would be supportive of Trump, but they were glad he was doing it because, hey, they have to live in those cities just like everybody else does. They don't want to get robbed and mugged and beaten up. The Doge guy And now I haven't followed up to see what his situation is, but we won't say his name. His initials are BB. But, he was trying to intervene and protect somebody. He got beaten pretty badly. And that seemed to be the tipping point for Donald Trump.
These are criminals that are running loose in the city. And so a woman was being assaulted. She was being tackled and attacked and either sexually assaulted or having her car stolen. And he saw that, and as a good Samaritan went to intervene, and then he was attacked. All of that group turned on him, and he was sent to the emergency room with really just in a horrible condition there. And so that's the condition for a single woman living in D.C. That's the condition for a young man who tries to step in and intervene. This is not what America is about. We should not have a country with crime out of control where you're safer walking down the street of Europe or somewhere in a foreign country than you are in your own home country here. We've got to get this under control. And to say things like, crime is like a 30-year low in D.C., that's someone who has not been in Washington, D.C. in a very long time. Everyone who's there, center, left, right, whoever you are, understands this problem. And anyone who's important there travels with armed security, all with them all the time. So this is a real problem. And he gave a lot of opportunity. He's several months into his presidency here. He gave a lot of opportunity and said, if you don't get this cleaned up, then I'm going to do something. And it wasn't cleaned up. So here's the doing something.
Yeah. Well, he follows through. He's not a politician. He's a guy that gets stuff done. I think that we've seen through his presidency that business people and governors that really get stuff done. Ron DeSantis is my favorite governor, even more so than Governor Abbott. But those guys that say, this is what I'm going to do, and then they do it. They don't wait around. They don't have, think tanks for months and months and months, figuring the pros and cons. They figure out what's right, and then they do it. Let me shift gears on you, Scott. So Donald Trump talked about taking on mail-in ballots and the voting machines and really just closing all the loopholes for voter fraud. I can't for the life of me see how somebody who is honest and fair-minded could be against that. But obviously every Democrat is against that because Trump wants to do it. They're against it. Seems like if you're against cutting out the cheating, you're kind of exposing yourself as a cheater.
Well, Democrats need to remember that the root of Democrat is democracy. We are pro-democracy in this country, and a democracy works when a citizen has one vote that's correctly counted. That's the only way a democratic republic will work in America. And so to oppose that, boy, that's really that's saying the quiet part out loud, as they say, for everyone to hear. Why would you oppose getting our election system corrected unless you are the benefiting party of a corrupt election system? That's clear as day. And we see that's really happening. We've also got to go back and say, why is our country in the shape that it's in? Why are our cities overrun with crime? Why are our policies hurting American citizens? Why is this not to our benefit that we're having to correct this now? Well, it's after years of election cycles that have been questionable. And it's been hard to prove a lot of that. A lot of the evidence hasn't been admissible into court, but to an everyday person that watches that and sees a guy riding up on a bicycle with a backpack full of ballots, looking to the left, looking to the right, and then stuffing them all in the ballot box while wearing a mask and running away, those are all mail-in ballots. And so who is that person? We don't know. Whose ballots are those? We don't know. Who did those vote for? We, of course, can't know because they get into the system. They're all processed through in that way. Well, that's happening time and time again. We have video evidence of that happening over and over again. That's not one case. That's happening in states all across America in swing elections where that number of ballots could have made a difference in the determining outcome. Then you look at on the back end, how do we verify those things? Well, states are not tracking signatures. They're not tracking multiple ballots from the same individual. They're not tracking people who are deceased, who are submitting ballots and have been dead for years and years. And so how does that all factor into the system? It makes it so that people that are concerned about the outcome of an election don't trust the process. Right. If either side doesn't trust the process, then you lose your country, you lose your democracy. Everybody has to look at the process and go, okay, I won or I lost, but this was a fair process. I understand what happened here. I'm happy to lose an election if I believe it's a fair process. If I say, okay, this is what happened, this is what the majority of the people voted for, then I'll take the loss. But when you lose an election and you go, wait a minute, what happened with a pipe breaking at 3 o'clock in the morning? Where did all these buckets of ballots come from?
Right.
Why did it take two weeks to count? How was all of this lost in the process? How are these not being counted over and over again? How are people that vote conservative tracking their ballots and saying yours was inadmissible or unacceptable?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many questions. That's the breakdown of a country. We've got to get back to trusting our elections. Everybody has to have confidence in this. And it seems like the machines have only made the problems worse. Mail-in ballots have only made the problems worse. And so I am an advocate of election day voting with paper ballots. And we should have the results by midnight that night. We've done this for years and years, and it's worked every time.
That's exactly right. And, if it's more inconvenient for people, I mean, I love the early voting. And because in Texarkana, I mean, you can pick your time and you can go, and man, it takes 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. And that some of these people that are waiting in lines for hours and hours, hats off to them. But I'd rather sacrifice time to make sure we have free and fair elections, because as you said, Scott, then you become a banana republic. If you can't trust the process, then what's the point of doing it? I'm not going to wait in line for 5 hours when you're going to cheat. And as you and I both know, there is none righteous, not even one. If there is an opportunity to cheat, men will find a way to cheat. That's just human nature.
Absolutely. We've got to have both sides with eyes on the process, with everybody understanding how it works. And you can go back and verify a paper ballot. You can see who voted. And if you need to look back years later and see how did this go, recount them, you can. All of that's lost with the voting system we've put into place here. And so we've got to get back to what works, what we can trust, what we can verify, and restore trust in the American election process. That's the only way you can begin to heal as a nation. We are so divided. We're so polarized. We've got to begin to come back together. A lot of Trump's policies are doing that. They're benefiting everybody in this country, the left, the right, the middle. He's been called a dictator, a fascist, but he's the one restoring integrity to our elections. He's the one putting policies in place that are protecting and benefiting even citizens that voted against him. And Americans that did not elect him as president, they're reaping the benefits of this election. And we're moving the right direction. This is a big step forward.
Scott, let's shift gears to the state of Texas. We've been in the national news with the Democrats fleeing to Illinois and Governor Pritzker and hiding in his basement or wherever they were. But now they're back. And so this just seems like theatrics, because Abbott says, I'll just call another special session. And you're not going to get away from this. What's your take on all that's been happening in Texas?
This is political theater. This is posturing. This is trying to make a point and fleeing the state, I suppose, to run from the law. Listen, these people volunteered to run for office. They volunteered to be public servants. They put themselves into this situation. They're in Texas. Of course, we're a conservative state. What do they think is going to happen in these moments? And so to think that they can flee the state and hold up things indefinitely, that doesn't work. That was never an actual plan. Of course, they're all back. Greg Abbott was quick to move forward on that. He was quick to implement the FBI. He made some promises and followed through with some of that. So that has brought them home. And we've got to get work done. That's the only way we can move forward, is to put people in the room. And if you don't like the policy, then vote against it. But you can't flee the state and hold up the process of democracy in an entire state. That doesn't work. That's not what America's about. And so you've got to get in. You've got to contend for the ideas. You've got to stay your piece. You've got to vote what you think is best and let the process play out as it is. Of course, now Republicans are doing in Texas what Democrats have done for decades and decades and years and years. We're putting some of those practices in place, and we're balancing our electorate and our policies to match where our people are. And we should pick up some seats along the way. Other states are doing that as well. And so Republicans are in control right now. And when we're having some wins that are for the betterment of the country, you can't flee and tie up the process. And I'm glad that hasn't worked out for them.
Scott, what's the latest situation with us fighting the abortion pill in Texas?
Yeah, that's overwhelming. There's slow progress moving forward, but this is a real awareness game. It's really kind of an education campaign status right now of there's as many abortions happening with the abortion pill as there were at abortion clinics. And so we have outlawed abortion in a lot of states in really strategic and helpful ways. Abortion clinics are closing. Planned Parenthood is being defunded. Those options are going away. The abortion pill now has become much more rampant. You can buy it in. It can ship across state lines. You can perform your abortion in a 2-pill regimen in your home and commit the abortion in that sense there underneath the policies of the state. And so we're having to really go back and educate people about what this means, what it's doing. Also, the threat to women's health is massive. This is a life-altering, certainly murders the baby, but a life-altering, body-altering procedure for a mother to go through in her home without medical care, without medical professionals. And so the risk to mothers is exponentially higher. And so there's legislation that's coming forward in Oklahoma and Texas to eliminate the abortion pill and to block some of those things at the state and perhaps at the federal level with international shipping and federal shipping. But people don't understand this. They haven't really seen it. And so to move the conversation that direction, we've got a yeoman's task ahead of us to do that.
Well, the lies, constant lies from the left, their crown jewel is abortion. I mean, they're going to fight tooth and nail for that, but they don't tell women the truth. It's as safe as Tylenol. That's such a blatant, bold-faced lie. And I had Dr. Sudhir J. Aprabu, a deacon in our church, who's a obstetrician gynecologist, and he said that pill is very dangerous. And as you said, Scott, if you take that, women who take it themselves, they don't have any medical supervision. Well, you can kill yourself doing that. You can bleed out and die as a result of this pill that's supposedly as safe as Tylenol. I know that we just have about a minute before break, but you guys fight tooth and nail for the life of the unborn. Do you see this as something that we might get some progress on in the next months, few years?
We certainly pray so. This is the next battle, and the number of regretful mothers after taking this pill, it's so easily available, that have immense regret afterward is astronomical. They've got some measures that can reverse it quickly, but even states like Colorado are making some of those things illegal to reverse the pill once you take it, to go ahead and continue through with the pregnancy. And so this is the next forefront of the pro-life movement, educating people, legislation about this, and really helping them understand how damaging and horrible this is, what it's doing to babies, what it's doing to mothers, and that it can't continue.
You're listening to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Shreve with Dr. Scott Colter. We'll be right back taking your calls. Don't go away.
American Family Radio is now available on iOS and Apple TV apps. That means even our content is in the world, but not of the world.
Here's where both of you, or each of you, got it right and wrong according to Scripture. That's always our plumb line.
And you can download these apps free from your favorite app store.
The objective is to make disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ.
AFR, available on iOS and Apple TV. And you can find even more app options at afr.net/apps. AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you are a pastor's wife, come be encouraged and renewed as you share your challenges and stresses unique to pastors and their wives.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat is coming October 28th through the 30th. You're invited to join us at Pickwick Landing State Park in Counce, Tennessee for 3 days of encouragement, renewal, and worship. Once again, Brother Bert Harper, AFA Director of Family and Pastoral Ministries, will host the retreat along with his wife Jan. Our special speaker will be J.J. Jasper of American Family Radio. If you've attended in the past, we'd love to see you again. And if you've never experienced a fishbowl retreat, we especially invite you to be refreshed and renewed. The per-couple admission price includes lodging, meals, and materials. Visit repairingthefoundations.net to learn more and register. That's repairingthefoundations.net.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. We'd love to see you there.
Life can change so abruptly. Just ask Paul. He's a hardworking entrepreneur. He's young. He's got a young family. Suddenly, though, He develops a rare medical condition where he lost the use of both of his arms.
I could no longer drive a car, couldn't use a computer, couldn't type, couldn't use a mouse. I could not hold my son, who was about a month old.
Paul and his family were facing a mountain of medical bills, but they're so thankful that they're members of Medishare.
I think if someone asked me, like, hey, does Medishare really work? I'm living proof that it works. My 4 children are living proof that it works. My arms, which have been healed, are living proof that Medishare works. Just knowing the emotional peace of mind, knowing that our needs are going to be taken care of when we have some type of medical problem, that is such a huge blessing to us.
It could be a huge blessing to you, too. People save so much and love being part of Medishare. Call now, 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE, 833-44-BIBLE.
If you'd like to contact Pastor Jeff, email pastorjeff@fromhisheart.org. Now, back to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Shreve.
Welcome back to the program. Pastor Jeff Shreve talking to Dr. Scott Colter, the founder of the Danbury Institute. And the Danbury Institute fights for the Judeo-Christian heritage our country was founded upon. And, as the Lord told Jeremiah in the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah chapter 29, we have that famous scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare, not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope." In that same chapter, he tells the people, hey, you're there in Babylon. Seek for the welfare of the city, for in its welfare you find welfare. And that really, Scott, in my mind, that speaks to Christians today in America. We are to seek for the welfare of our city. It's, this idea that you separate yourself from politics because politics have no bearing on the kingdom of God. I've heard, John MacArthur said that's true. The kingdom of God, doesn't need America or anything like that. But we do live here in America. He does want us to seek for the welfare of the cities. And so your whole institute is committed to bettering things for Americans and keeping our foundation solid. How do you respond to those people who say, Scott, you're a child of the king, you're a PhD in theology, why are you doing this political stuff?
Well, that's the argument really of the devil that, like I said, Christians just go over there and you can do whatever you want, but just don't let it affect anybody else. Just go in your church, close the door, don't share about Christ, don't share the gospel, don't witness, just keep to yourself. That's the argument of our enemy. We're called to live our life out in public. We're called to live our Christian values out in public. That is being a Christian, being salt and light in the world around us. And so we cannot separate as believers and followers of Christ what we know to be true, what we know to be moral and good from the way we live our life. And so, of course, we vote according to our convictions. Of course, we choose candidates according to our convictions. Of course, we want local policies that affect our family and our neighbors according to our convictions. We're called as Christians to love people, to love our neighbor, and policies and personnel affect policies, and policies affect people. And so when you're electing someone, you're electing a person who puts into practice policies that affect your neighbors. Well, one way, and I think a key way that you love your neighbor, is by putting policies and people in place that will bless and benefit your neighbor. That's what we're seeing right now in our country, and that really is our Christian duty.
Amen to that. Well, we're opening the phone lines at 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. If you have a question or comment, Scott and I have been talking about Donald Trump's presidency, his diplomacy, his willingness to tackle things that nobody else would tackle. Ronald Reagan didn't tackle many of these things. Now, he tackled the evil empire, and hats off to him for doing that. But Trump has gone places, to quote Captain Kirk, where no man has gone before. And he's doing really well because I think the Lord is blessing what he's doing, because what he's doing is right and it's good for the people. So give us a call, 888-589-8840, if you have a question or comment. And we have Nancy on the line from Texas. Nancy, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Thank you. I just wanted to share something that my husband and I got to go and listen to in the state of Texas. These two men that went actually all over the country teaching about the voting machines. There was Dr. Walter Daugherty, who was the senior lecturer at the AT&M, the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, and David Clements, who was a lawyer, and they have really been attacking him. But the whole essence of their talk was, if you don't get rid of the voting machines, it is over. That it was just, they're corrupt, and we can't have a honest system with those voting machines. And they showed us how that they did it like an airplane, how it slows up, speeds up, slows down, goes up, goes down. It was incredible, but that was their message. If you don't get rid of the voting machines, it's over.
Yeah, great point. I totally agree with that. That's why you have it dummy proof, so to speak, Scott. You have it to where it's a paper ballot. You fill it out. It's got your signature on it, and you know that that's my vote, and nobody can fool with that.
Absolutely. The voting machines introduce a number of variables that we cannot know and we cannot control. What's happening inside the machine, who can hack into them, how does it track the data, what happens to the data after it goes, what happens when the thing that goes in isn't counted the way it went in. And so the number of variables is uncontrollable. You lose your control group, and that doesn't work.
Right. Very good. Well, thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you bringing that up, and thanks for listening to the program and calling in. We have Frank on the line from Kentucky. Frank, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Hi there. My comment is about the situation about the abortion pill.
Mm-hmm.
It's really frustrating, because why don't they go to the source of the problem, the ones that are making that stupid pill?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why they keep dancing around the situation. If you have a fire, you don't go to the wrong house.
Right.
Go to the source. Why they keep doing that over and over again? And they complain and complain about it. I don't understand why they don't shut that down. That's what.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so Scott, it's not like let's shut down the gun manufacturers because guns kill people. We know that people kill people, and guns can be used for good or evil. The abortion pill is only used for evil. It's only used to kill babies. So Frank brings up a good question. Why don't they just shut down the manufacture of these two pills?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great line of attack and approach from the conservative movement here. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Of course, you're dealing with big pharma and a lot of lobbying industry and a lot of money. And so this is good business in America. It's terrible morals, terrible ethics. It's evil, but it's good business. And so, of course, that's a difficult empire to counter and to attack, because a lot of people have a lot of livelihood invested in the profits that they make off of this. So you're going against big corporations, big government, and a lot of that. But absolutely, that's a likely line of approach. Similar to that is looking at, this is actually not a pill that should be passing tests as far as safety of women and those types of things that should even be acceptable to be doing. If another medication had these types of side effects that sent people to the hospital on the rate that this does and led to death if they're not there in a certain amount of time, it likely would not be readily available. And so there's several different approaches to try and stop this at the source. And that's what we're working on. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Scott, I remember when I watched the documentary, it was kind of a docudrama on OxyContin and the Sackler family, and good night. Those people sold their soul to the devil for a bowl of stew, so to speak. I mean, it's just doing everything for the love of money. They knew that pill created addicts and destroyed so many lives. The people that make these two drugs, they know what it does. They know the consequences. They know the issues that can come from that. They're not totally blind to that, although they might not tell you, but they know deep down. I mean, I just marvel how those people sleep at night. You're putting women at risk, women who are in a very vulnerable state, many of them, and you're putting their lives at risk, and you're killing the unborn. You're not the abortion doctor that's ripping the baby into shreds, but you're working for an organization. If you work for that company that's making these two pills, you have a part in that. How do you think that person comes to grips with that?
I don't know. That's a level of depravity that is rampant in our society, but is overwhelming. And the abortion pill, it even separates. In the past, some people would like to say the mother was the victim and the abortionist was the criminal, and the person committing the act needs to be held accountable. Well, this makes the mother and the abortionist the same person, and the mother is the one choosing to get this abortion in this case and performing it on herself, and it is blocking and destroying the biological process that God created her body to work in a certain way. The first pill causes her uterus to fail and the lining to thin and to make it inhospitable to a baby. And then the second pill taken a day or two later causes that to be expelled from her body and goes through there. That happens with a lot of hemorrhaging, a lot of bleeding. Women have bled out before. The long-term effects for this, of what this does to your body and uterine effects and all of that, are still being found out and still perhaps underway. But the regret is massive, but also the number of women who end up hospitalized after taking this is overwhelming. So there is no positive here. It's the murder of a baby. It's the massive health risk of a mother, and all for profits. A lot of people are turning a blind eye because there's a demand for it in our country, and that's the silent. There's a supply and demand chain here, and economics rule the day. And so as long as there's a demand for it, as long as mothers are wanting this, there's an incentive for big pharma to provide it to them. And so we need to stop the demand. We need to educate, but we also need to try and put as many regulations and blocks as possible to making that readily available on the receiving end, on the manufacturing end, and on the shipping and transport end. A lot of questions deal with what happens when Texas says this is illegal, you can't do this, but you can ship it in from out of state. And how does that whole process work? Of course, it's hard to track, hard to deal with. But what does that do to the autonomy of a state when you can perform something that the state has said you can't through shipping laws?
Very good. All right, let's shift gears to the Southern Baptist Convention. How do you see things trending right now in the SBC?
That's a $1 million question. Boy, that's hard to answer. A lot of us have had concerns, Jeff, you and I have, in lots of different ways over the past decade or so over the direction of the SBC. We have seen a lot of those concerns be alleviated or kind of a change of course in some ways. And so several of the key players and leaders that we would have been concerned about have resigned, have joined other denominations, have joined left-leaning Christian magazines, have perhaps gone places where they fit better than in a conservative SBC. And so in some ways we celebrate that, and we look forward to some of the madness and the chaos that has plagued our denomination for the last several years kind of beginning to seem to have come to a pass. Someone was talking with me last week, and they said it's funny. It's like we're winning, but we haven't actually won any battles. We've lost elections, we've lost battles, but it feels like the trajectory of the convention is moving back the right way. Of course, Brent Leatherwood resigned from the ERLC just a couple of weeks ago. I think that's a healing move for the convention. One of the most divisive entities and one of the most divisive individuals in our convention has stepped to the side. And so this is an opportunity for our convention to move forward. But it depends on how much damage has been done. The cooperative program is declining. Churches are leaving regularly. And so a lot of churches have said enough is enough. And I don't know if a course correction will change that, or if they'll continue to go on their own way at this point.
How about, Scott, the state of the seminaries? Have they improved some? I know Southern Seminary is still really strong. Midwestern seems to be strong, but the other ones maybe not so strong. What do you see there?
It's a difficult time for higher education, and especially Christian higher education all across the board in America. In general, all of that's declining right now. And so they're up against a difficult climate to be in Christian higher education right now. They have made a lot of that move more quickly and exponentially with adopting things like critical race theory and unbiblical ideologies, finding their way into the classroom. Southern Seminary has come out against a lot of that. Al Mohler has said this is unbiblical. This is at odds with our Baptist faith. And so I think that has helped those seminaries who have taken a more conservative, more traditional biblical stance against those. Some have not, and they seem to still be declining even more quickly in some ways. And so it's not a great time for the health of higher education. But as you embrace the world's ideas to try and appeal to more and more people, you find out really the opposite is true.
I had a guy from Liberty on a couple of weeks ago, and had a wonderful conversation with him. I don't know what it is, but it seems like whatever liberty touches turns to gold, and seems to be a home run. And boy, they're just knocking it out of the park. I tell people, hey, if I had a high school senior, I would push them toward Liberty University. What do you think about that?
They're doing an overwhelming job. If you add up all of our Southern Baptist seminaries, all 6 of them, we have about 14 to 15,000 total seminary students among all of them. You put all that together. If you look at Liberty University, they have 180,000 students. When you put all that together, it's overwhelming. They're massive, and they have not been afraid of who they are. They haven't been afraid of their roots. They haven't been afraid of their conservatism. Certainly, the founder there and those who have followed him have been strong patriots. They've been strong conservatives. They've been strong evangelists. They've been strong in their Baptist faith. And so by not running away from who they are, but leaning into conservative values and to biblical values, they really have appealed to this wide swath of our country. And it's been to their great gain and benefit. So I think if anyone's watching and paying attention out there, they are an example to hold the line, to stand for what is true, and not to try and chase ideologies that are away from our faith, but to lean into that and to be who we are.
Yeah, amen. Well, Scott, tell us again how our listeners can connect with you.
Absolutely. The DanburyInstitute.org. We're on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. We put out a weekly Life and Liberty brief, 2 minutes of the news you need to know about the sanctity of human life, religious liberty. We're contending in the public square, helping Christians be equipped to stand for the truth in our world around us and to be salt and light. And I would love for you to be part of what we're building together.
Amen. Well, Scott, thanks for being my guest today. It's always a pleasure, my friend. God bless you and your sweet wife and 2 children. And you've been listening to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Shreve. Go out today, shine for Christ, and share what great things the Lord has done for you. Stand up for the truth, and God will use you as His witness. God bless you.